Welcome back to the District of Unity podcast. I'm Carl. I'm back again. Um, Got to talk about my parents, talk about what kind of influence they had on my life and um, how I've learned a lot from both of them, both right and wrong. I'm going to start with my dad, Carl Sr. Um, they always called him Butch. I've only heard three people in my life ever call my dad Carl. And I'll put a picture up so you can see Mr. Butch. So, anyhow, with my dad, he was basically a social butterfly. Everybody in the neighborhood knew him. We would go to different places in DC, and it's like, there go Butch. There he is. Ladies loved him. He was a good looking guy. Some people said he looked like Ken Norton. Some people said he looked like the actor Fred Williamson. Some people also mentioned that he looked like Michael Spinks. So it was a wide range. I guess it was dependent on his look. Um, and that time they said he could rag. We're talking, 70s here. Obviously he was a good dresser, he was mild tempered, very affable, very likable. Um, and one of the things about my dad, he would always try to find the best case scenario solution for any problem that he ran into. I mean, that's his good points. His bad points was he was an alcoholic. There was a lot of alcoholism obviously now, but there was a lot back then because we were in more of a blue collar hood versus a drug influenced hood growing up. Wasn't a lot of gangs and so forth in Northeast DC. You had some people that hustled. Everybody, only DC folks would know this. Everybody was related to Rayful Edmond. Everybody had a cousin or whatever. Oh yeah, I knew Rafus. They called him Rafus. So everybody and their mother had to say they was related to him or whatever. But that's a whole nother discussion about DC. But my dad was extremely popular, you know. Um, One of the things when he drank alcohol, he just became a total asshole when he was drunk. I mean, if it wasn't sad, it was funny. Because some of the stuff that used to come out of his mouth, it's like, is that Butch talking that way? You know, um, he was just a big child. I always called him the Jolly Black Giant. Outside of the alcohol, whenever he was drunk, he was like a total dick. Um, but outside of that, he was such a good guy that just had a lot of problems, a lot of internal problems. He was kind of everybody's golden child. I would have to say the prodigal son because everybody wanted to be like him and everybody was influenced by him in some way, shape, or form. Um, he was very studious. One of the things I always noticed growing up is how much he loved to read. And he loved the subjects of Egypt, all of the stuff about Tutankhamun and Akhenaten and some of the other pharaohs. I may be saying it wrong and so forth. Nobody said that I was an orator here, but I guess I'm on YouTube. I guess I better start pronouncing some of this stuff right, right? So he will study a lot on Egypt. He studied a lot of Malcolm X. He has so many books on the Nation of Islam and so forth. And he studied the Kennedy assassination. There was a lot of books that he had on it. First print books that I don't have. I don't know if one of my aunts have them or some of his friends got it when he passed away because he passed away in 1990. Um, but at that time, him and my mother was separated. They had separated like 2 years before then, but before he passed away, they was trying to reconcile, and it just wasn't happening. He was in poor health. He had a heart attack. He was a chain smoker, smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day and so forth. I think it was a lot of depression going on there. It may have been some other issues that he had outside of a bad heart, because I mean, he would smoke. I mean, good God, he would reek of cigarettes because he smoked those Benson Hedges menthol, and man, he would reek. When it came to that. Um, and that's one of the reasons why I don't smoke and I don't drink, because I saw what it did to him. Um, I've, it's always been said either you're going to be a carbon copy of your parents or you're going to be the exact opposite of your parents. Or even, I would say this, you could be the inverse of your parents too. You know, you're along that same line, but you're just a little bit different. You vary just a little bit. And he was a good chef. He was one of those ones that he was a jack of all trades, master of none. You know, God, he would cook some good food. Between him and my grandmother Janie, his mother, they would, nobody else needed to be in that kitchen, you know. And he taught me how to have fun because as a kid growing up, I was always looking at, you know, getting tasks done. Just everything had to be in perfect order. Everything I had to learn. I had to read the book from cover to cover. I had to do all of my assignments before I even decided to have fun and so forth. And my dad took the opposite approach, like, son, life ain't gonna always be this. You're gonna have to get out there, have some fun, meet new friends, do this, do that. He always had that encouraging word to get me going and so forth. So it was obviously a devastating loss to me to lose him, in 1990 because, he was that counterbalance to my mother. My mother was a worker bee, and she always was. She was a nurse most of her life. She worked at the post office in New Jersey early on, but she was always a worker bee and extremely religious. And she was always trying to find, you know, some sort of balance in her life. My dad wasn't as religious as she was, but he studied the Bible. He was more in the Baptist realm. When he met her, she was a Catholic. You know, um, there are some Italian lines in the family on her side. Um, African American, German, Irish. I mean, we're like the whole melting pot on my mother's side of the family, and the women are very dominant over there, and basically they ruled the house because they had that. If it wasn't the Irish temper, it was the Latin temper. If it wasn't the Latin temper, it was the German temper. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it all came out in, the women over there more so than the guys. You know, I have her temper, you know, um, and my dad, you would really have to drag it out of him to like, get him angry at something. I mean, obviously the alcohol will bring it out, but when he wasn't, when he was sober, you would really had to, pull teeth to get him like, ready to start World War III through 8 with somebody. With my mother, it was no problem with her to start the second Civil War. I mean, you know, she just had this temper where, you know, she could be very irrational, and you know how some people would say stuff that would cut through you like a knife? That's how she was. I mean, it was like something that would come out of her mouth would be so like, why in the motherfucker would you say something like that? You know, it just drove you crazy. You know, um, she could be very hurtful. Um, Me and my mother's relationship wasn't all that good once I became a preteen because she was one of those parents where it was like, when you turn 18, you're going to get the hell out of this house, blah, 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 you know. And she, even though she put this strong persona on, if somebody had more, you know, oratory skills and had that confidence to tell her, she could be easily manipulated. And a lot of people that's like that are, that comes off that would, you know, be very stern with you and so forth. She would listen to that. It's like, I would listen to the context of what somebody says. She'll listen to the way they say it. And I'll listen to the context of what somebody said. I'm like, this makes no damn sense whatsoever, what they're telling her. And she'll be like, yep, that's it. That's what I'm doing, and so forth. So she went through Catholicism in the 70s. In the 80s, she became a Jehovah Witness. And that's pretty much where everything went downhill with the family at. She, you know, she was looking for that religious influence to dominate her life and take it over. And whatever you say about the religion, it could be, you know, everybody has that religion where, you know, they're like, oh, I can't believe you're a Catholic. I can't believe you're a Seventh day Adventist. I can't believe you're a Mormon. I can't believe, I mean, you can insert religion here, and everybody will have something negative to say about that religion and so forth. But I always knew it was something else that was going on there because she was so irrational sometimes where it's like, okay, there's something mentally or psychologically going on with this woman. And when our relationship down the line, because I moved out the house early and, you know, I was a teenager when I went and got my own apartment and all of this other stuff. Never looked back, by the way. Um, she always had something that was messed up about her. And I guess once our relationship got to the point where I just didn't want to deal with her anymore. And I basically moved out of DC because I just didn't want to be anywhere near her because that's how bad our relationship has gotten. Um, and plus, I had gotten married, you know, kids and so forth. I'm happily divorced, you know, going on 20 years now. But that's a whole different subject. She, um, I guess, once she realized that she didn't have that influence over me anymore, it took her everything she had to tell me that she was raped. She was raped by my grandfather. It happened in 1953, um, the first time. So she was born in 1946, so that would make her 7 years old when that happened. Okay. Um, she showed me all of the hospital papers that they had then with Wake Memorial Hospital. And I'm looking at this, you know. She showed me the paperwork because she knew I wouldn't believe her just saying it. And when I looked at that, I read all 150 some pages of it. She would have these emotional breakdowns, these nervous breakdowns, and so forth. That's hence why she kind of left the Catholic Church and went to Jehovah's Witnesses because I guess the Catholic Church didn't give her what she was looking for, as in terms of solving a problem once she became a teenager, adult. and so forth and so on. That kind of all ties together there. And, you know, with my grandfather, her father, um, we never put it like this. He always treated me fine. And we used to play cards, and he would tell me stories from the early 1900s and so forth because he was born in 1907. So Theodore Roosevelt was president when he was born. Um, and he would tell me about a lot of the stuff on the farm and, how he was treated. He was one of 11 kids and so forth. He was the only kid that was born in the, 20th century because, everybody else was born in the 19th century. He was the last child, you know. So we had a decent relationship. But then after my mother showed me that, I was like, this motherfucker, Um, I couldn't I couldn't do it anymore with his memory. And I think that's why um, my dad, my uncle, his brother, they knew what happened. My brother Curtis knew what happened because they used to always talk trash to my grandfather when my mother wasn't around. And I never understood what the dynamic was. I was like, why are y'all disrespecting this old man like this? Um, and I saw why. And she took care of that man to the day he died. She was able to put all of that stuff that happened to her, and mind you, she got put into an asylum because of the way she acted towards my grandfather. He raped her. What did you expect? How did you expect her to come off to him? You know, she was afraid of the man. He violated her. You know, she had to go basically from the 50s all the way to 2018 when she passed away with that on her soul. And, you know, it ruined not just her life, but several other lives around her because she was fighting that demon that she couldn't get away from that she had nothing to do with. You know, it ruined her entire life. It ruined the way she looked towards men. It ruined the way that she looks towards family. Um, and my grandmother, her mother, wasn't really around because she was a prostitute, you know? So, yeah, I got a pretty fucked up past. So, when you start looking into my family and my roots and so forth, so I don't want to hear what anybody else goes through without knowing that I probably had it worse than you and I was still able to do something with my life. Um, and I'm not going to play the victim of anything. I just feel like that's life. I mean, we all have a backstory, we all have stuff that happens to us. But I guess the moral to this, to wrap this up, because I don't want it to go that much longer, my mother was able to put all of that hate and all of that stuff that happened to her behind her in order to take care of that man until he passed away. He was 81 years old when he passed away. Him and my dad died a year from each other. My grandfather passed away. It had to been around May 1st of 89. My father passed away April 26th of 1990, literally a year later. Um, I had a dream in 1988 um, that both my father and my grandfather were laying in caskets. One was on one side, one was on the other side. And I never mentioned anything to my dad. But ironically, my mother had the very same dream. And she did mention it to my dad. And he was like, Rosa, that was my mother's name, Rosa. why in the hell would you even tell me something like that? And after my father had passed away, this is an old school store in DC called GC Murphy's. Um, and it's just a one off story. We both heard our dad, well, my dad, her husband, her late husband, in a dream tell us that paper towels was on sale. It could have been a commercial that was on TV and the TV was on. I don't know what the heck. But we both had a dream that he told us to go there. And mind you, um, I haven't seen my mother in months, and we both were in the store at the same time, and we both compared stories. And it was like, that was the only time, well, not the only time, because it was a couple of times where my mother questioned her faith and was like, what the hell is going on? Because it's like, we both have these, dreams. And she told me one time that she had an out of body experience, and I had one, um, only once. And it was weird because I was laying in the bed next to my wife at that time, and I remember I had misplaced my wallet and I had no idea where the hell my wallet was. So I remember getting out of the bed and I was walking, but I wasn't walking. I was floating. And I was like, the hell is going on here? And I tried to open the door to the bedroom. We lived in a four, was it a 4 or 3 bedroom house at this point? Probably was a 3 bedroom house. And anyhow, it had stairs. And I remember how I glided down the stairs and I couldn't open the door, but I went through the door. So I looked in the kitchen. There was my wallet. It was next to the toaster. I was like, okay, I found my wallet. So I remember going back upstairs. I went in the room to look at the kids sleeping and so forth. And then I went back to the bed and I saw my ex wife and myself laying there. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And I didn't see no cord because I know some people say when you have an out of body experience, there's some almost like an umbilical cord or something like that that attaches your spiritual self to your, you know, your carbon self or your actual realistic form or whatever. I didn't see that. I didn't see that at all. I just saw me laying there knocked out sleep. And I was like, okay, am I dead? You know what I'm saying? Because that's the first thing I thought about. I was like, did I like pass away in my sleep or whatever? Nope. Um, because I remember I was like, I floated above the bed and then I woke up. And the first thing I did? I went downstairs and I got my wallet because I had to confirm that I actually see my damn wallet down there, and I did. So that was my out of body experience and so forth. And that's a synopsis of my parents. And this video went a little bit longer than what I wanted to go through. But the short of it, my mother taught me work ethic. And she taught me how to be dedicated to whatever I'm doing. My dad taught me how to have fun and have a balance to what I'm doing and realize I can't live in a silo. I have to explore and see what's out there and, enjoy life. Those were the two things that I took from my parents. And you know, I'm a flawed human being. There's a lot of stuff that I do wrong. There's a there's going to be just as many things as I do right, but that's how Rosa Baldwin and Carl Baldwin Sr. showed me what life is all about in their lens, and I think what attracted both of them together They were both black sheeps of their families in different ways. You know, my dad had that starving artist mentality, whereas my mother was kind of like that worker bee that, you know, she was dedicated. She wasn't, this, she wasn't that, but she was going to do this. And she could not cook to save her life. I mean, good God, get and keep that woman out of the kitchen. Her and my sister Lisa, they tried, they tried, but god damn it, it didn't work. But that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, my mother and my dad, that's the influence they had on me. And they always, both of them, had that ability to have me seek knowledge in different ways. My mom did it with dedication and, having that strong work ethic. My dad did it in a more cerebral, more academic sort of way to always, verify everything and, not be afraid to explore and not be afraid to learn. And you can have fun and look good doing it. I didn't get to look good doing it from him, but I did get academic, side of it. And I didn't have his charisma, but you know, he was definitely a good man. Just it was just a sign of the times. He was one of those people that was ahead of his time, but because he was so flawed, stuff happened. You know, but I'll leave y'all alone with this one. Um, Be sure to like, subscribe, and everything else. And that's my parents, Carl and Rosa Baldwin. Good old Butch. I'll see y'all in the next episode.